It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
Lee has a very interesting question. He says, I'm 27 and saving 37% of my income,
nice.
with most going towards retirement. I'm unsure what I am saving for outside of that. Should I save and keep saving even if I don't know what I'm saving towards?
I've noticed this trend. I've gotten a few people approach me on Twitter and so forth that have said, hey, I'm saving 35, 40%. What am I doing? And my relatives or my family starting to get ticked off at me because, and I do think this is something I want to challenge all financial mutants because, you get kind of addicted to saving. I've shared this before that we know the majority of Americans are actually addicted to consumption. So you're already a financial mutant when you're a builder of wealth, and once you start seeing your money stack up and reach some critical mass points, you start going, man, this is pretty fun. I'm enjoying watching this wealth building because I know that this is money that will work hard for me. But there is a trap that I want to encourage you, and I've picked on Bo, and I'll let him give some color on this, is that us achievers, those that are just naturally good at the basics, and you start realizing you can build wealth, sometimes there can be too much of a good thing. There's a fine line between financial mutant and financial miser, especially if you look at your life and you say, am I actually enjoying the phase of life that I'm in? But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. I think a lot of young people don't know what we're saving for, right? Like we think about retirement. I remember when I first started investing, way back when, Brian, when I first opened my first investment, I wasn't necessarily thinking about retirement. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't know what life was going to look like. But I knew that I should probably be more like, was it the ant that stores up? It's probably more like the ant than the grasshopper, right? Like I should probably be the one that saves for the future and that puts a little bit aside so that it gives me options. So if you're at least someone that's 27 and you're saving 37%, but you don't know what you're saving for, I would argue the thing that you're saving for is you're saving to figure it out. You're saving to figure out what your future options are. You're saving to give yourself options because while 27-year-old Lee might not know what you want to do and how you want to do it and when you want to be doing it, 35-year-old Lee might be starting to figure that out. 35-year-old, 40-year-old Lee might be saying, hey, I might want to leave the workforce early. I might want to travel the world. I might want to downgrade into a career that's not as stressful. I may want to do volunteer work. I may want to fill in the blank of the things that you want to do. Well, that future Lee, that 35, 40-year-old Lee is going to be excited that 27-year-old Lee, even though he didn't have it all figured out, was putting that money aside, building that army of dollars because the faster you can stack it up early on, the more time you have for it to grow. Now, I agree, Brian. I don't think that you should live like a miser and you should not sacrifice doing the things that you want to do. But I'm amazed and so encouraged when I see these folks in their 20s with these huge savings rates that say, you know what? I'm so glad that between the time I graduated at 22 to the time I got at 27, I saved up $100,000 in my investment accounts. And yeah, then I got married and I had kids and I bought the house and we got the dog and my savings rate wasn't the same. But you know what? Because I built up that pot of money over here early that could build for me through time, it's going to do the snowball, it's going to roll down the hill like a snowball, getting bigger and bigger and bigger because I did that early on. So I don't think there's anything wrong with saving for the future, not knowing exactly what you're saving for.
Well, I think, and I want to make sure that I clarify, what I really wanted was just a spot check on the happiness factor and fulfillment factor, because I think back to myself in my 20s is that as long as you stopped and you said, okay, Am I happy? I mean, because to me, happiness back then was, of course, me and my spouse, but then also I had an annual, and I still do, a golf trip with my buddies, and I could do all that for so cheap that I'd take and be like, yeah, I don't have anything else it's not a car, a nicer car is not going to make me happy, or more, a fancy watch isn't going to make me happy. I don't need a bigger house at this point. I'm happy exactly where I am. So if I don't have something that's going to, it's not consumption for the sake of it. Let's keep building so that maybe there will be a purpose down the road that I need this. I'm A-okay with that. But I think that if you have other people in your life, like spouses, children, and other things, because I had a gentleman that I was trading texts with where he was in his 40s, And he was like, I have this, and it was a decent sum of money. That, I mean, he was getting into multiple seven figures, and his wife was like, "Why do we always have to travel like so early in the morning? Why do we have to? Why can't we do this a little different?" That's different because if you spot check the happiness of you, and take a temperature of what's going on, that's kind of miserly when you're still taking the 6 a.m. flights.
Yeah.
When maybe you can afford to fly at 9:45 now because you've put in the hard work, you've put the money to work, that you can start giving yourself a little more flexibility and latitude. I'm not telling you to go out there and buy the nicer car when you're 27 years old. I'm just saying make sure you're not missing your 20s, because you'll only be in your 20s once. You'll only be in your 30s once. I just want you to slow down, take a temperature reading of what's going on, that you know your why. And then if you don't have it complete, it's okay, because look, I was over saving on purpose, but I was very happy. There was nothing that I needed. Stuff didn't make me any happier. It didn't take my happiness scale up anymore. Yes, I guess I could have bought a Mercedes or a BMW in my 20s and looked cooler.
Sure.
But I already had the person in my life that I was like,
you want to look
she already
cool in
loves
front
me,
of.
so it's okay. And she doesn't see any value in this either. So, but I am experiencing now in my late 40s, we go on trips that probably, I mean, it's just ridiculous. But it's because I was loading it up in my 20s that a lot of that stuff is multiplied exponentially. So I'm not telling you to go spend for the sake of spending. I'm just saying take a temperature check and make sure you have a purpose and a why for every dollar that comes into your command.